Dr. Abdul in the building, running for Senate in Michigan.
What up, Doe?
What are you doing here today? I mean, not just on the stream, but you're in Los Angeles. You're in my hood again.
We are. We're trying to raise some money. We got a bit of a fundraiser tonight, and I think our good friend is going to be there. Looking forward to it.
I've never attended a fundraiser
Really?
before. Yeah, I was texting the Pod Johns earlier too to be like, what is this? What's this gonna look like? I've never done that before.
It's
Wait, am I expected to open my wallet too?
you don't have to, man. You don't have to.
Is that how this goes?
Yo, chat. Tell this man.
Is that why I was invited?
No, it's gonna be a good opportunity. There's actually gonna be a lot of different kinds of people there. You know Mike Murphy? He hosts a podcast called Hacks on Tap, and he's from Michigan, like arch conservative his whole life, and now runs a group focused on EVs. And so Mike Murphy said he might show up. So you're gonna have everybody from you to Mike Murphy.
Okay,
so it'll be an interesting conversation.
That's the most arch conservatives, the most right wing it goes.
In that room,
I feel like
probably.
that's gonna be a room that.
I mean, we're not like Uber MAGA at this point, but that would be
Yeah.
wild. Stephen Miller walks up. He's like, "Hey, I heard this was an event to support Abdul Sayed."
I feel like that room. I got ops everywhere. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have ops there because like it's not like a lot of the big ticket Dems. They don't really. I mean, they tolerate me because they understand that like I have the best interests of the country in mind. Even if we have disagreements in how we must get there. But I think you know that better than anybody else, being a champion of Medicare for all from the start. Hold on, push that in. That's a major point of disagreement that people like ourselves have with a lot of establishment Democrats. We'll see what happens. I'm excited. I've never experienced something like this before.
It'll be a cultural experience. I mean, here's the thing about it, right? I don't take any corporate money, so that allows me to actually have a conversation about what's best for folks. And the problem with sort of the mainstream Democratic Party too often is we want to talk to working people about the challenges that they face, and at the same time, too often Democrats take money from the very same people who are creating the problem in the first place. And so it puts you in a weird position, so you end up saying milquetoast stuff like, I want you to have affordable healthcare. And you'll say, okay, how? And be like, well, I want you to be able to afford your healthcare. Like, you're just saying the same thing in different words. Like, how do you want to do it? And then they'll say stuff like a public option. You're like, okay, so tell me a little bit about why a public option is actually going to guarantee people healthcare. What's going to say that it's more affordable than what we have right now? Nothing. And you're just trying to create space for the corporate health insurance industry to continue to sustain itself and leech money out of our pockets as we get sick.
What do you think of in terms of like populist messaging? I feel like a lot of Democrats have shied away from the term populism, or at least like they regard it as like a negative thing. I don't, obviously. I think there's real populism and there's sloppyism. I call right-wing populism sloppyism. There's just not real. It's more so just ridiculous statements about, ridiculous tribalist sentiment, right? For the most part, it's a misdirection away from the real material issues that have impact on people's lives. As far as that populist sentiment goes, I've been thinking about this quite a bit on messaging GDP. Like, I feel like a lot of Americans kind of understand now that like GDP is not the best metric to assess the
it's not about
health of the average person. And I think it's a really good entry point into having a conversation about private healthcare in general as well, because like private healthcare is a unnecessary middleman that is parasitic in nature, that does not actually drive costs down at all. As a matter of fact, in many circumstances, it's incentivized to drive the costs up. And it's beneficial for the GDP, though. I mean, it's explosive. It's a there are a
lot of ways
multi-billion-dollar industry.
There are a lot of ways to extract money out of people. And if the only thing you measure is how much money gets extracted in the economy and how much money moves hands, that doesn't necessarily tell you that that's doing it for the well-being of all of us. I would take an example of this. And this may be popular or unpopular for the chat, but let me just say it. Like sports betting. I got a good friend of mine, right? Our whole relationship used to be comparing athletes from the 90s. We'd like trade Barry Sanders videos, right? Because as a Detroit kid,
we hate betting here. This is a halal community. Gambling is haram. We don't participate in that. But go on.
But you just my guy can't watch ESPN anymore. He's got problematic gambling. So basically, everything about his entire experience growing up is gone for him, because the minute he turns on ESPN, they're trying to give him some sort of incentive to go spend some money on something he's going to lose money on. When you start putting it in people's faces, and as an industry, you're making money on people who can't control themselves, that's a problem. Now look, that industry is billions of dollars. It makes a whole lot of money extracting from people who can't make a rational decision. And like, you're right. That would benefit the GDP. To your point about populism,
Well, that's why CNN is sponsored by Kalshi now.
insane. Like, so we're going to bet on all the news items. I mean, here's the problem with
They're
it.
doing
Like,
it already. They're ruining it. Ruined sports, and now they're ruining, I guess, news. But the news has already been ruined. So it's genuinely terrifying that they're like that. This is what we're doing now. It's just like
how can we monetize everything?
Yeah.
And that's the problem. I mean, like that's the problem. Look, at the end of the day, when you start thinking that there are certain things that are just monetizable, like political outcomes, you don't realize that the whole point of our political system is supposed to be about providing basic dignities for people's lives. At this point, it just becomes another game. And like, this is the hard part of these incentives, right? If all you're measuring is how much money is put through the economy, then at some point you start making really problematic decisions like allowing health insurance corporations to leech off the top of our healthcare so that CEOs can make $18 million a year, which, by the way, is the income of the CEO of the largest health insurer in Michigan. Every single one of those dollars came out of somebody's pocket. Now, if you're looking at GDP, you're like, that's great. If you're actually looking at the well-being of people who are downstream of that, that sucks. And unfortunately, here we are.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it becomes increasingly clear for I think more and more Americans every single day that like it's our economy basically is just like a carcass for 90% of the population, and for the top 10% of wealth, we're just like holding on to this like perma growth mentality. And no matter what the cost of that might be to the quality of life for the average citizens, we don't really care. And we just keep pumping it.
To your point, right? Like, you think about where the economy is right now. Just look at the top stocks. The top 7 stocks are all invested in one thing, which is AI.
Yep.
And the implications in local communities are huge. So we just dropped last week a terms of engagement for data centers, because there have been 15 data center projects proposed in the last year alone, and all of them are collaborating with our local utilities. DTE is one of them. They are the biggest single spender to corrupt Michigan politics in the entire state. And meanwhile, our rates for electricity have gone up faster than 46 other states. I lose my power 2 or 3 times a year for 3 or 4 days at a time. And so like folks are freaking out. They're like, okay, so now you got one project that's going to increase the overall electricity output for all of DTE by more than 100%. And we're supposed to believe that like we're not going to eat last and our rates are not going to go up.
But the economy is entirely reliant, like you said, on AI. So bubble or not, if it pops, everything falls apart because we've stacked all of our bets against that.
And here's the crazy thing. These companies are relying that one of them is going to win. Like the whole logical architecture of this is that they're a race for AGI. There's going to be one winner.
Yeah.
So that means like what happens to the other ones?
Yeah, it's gonna. And you know it's gonna be real crazy when we get there and we find out it's Chinese, the winner of the AGI race. Because I feel like this kind of stuff has to be open sourced, and in many respects it was, and it still kind of is, right? Like as far as like taking all of the information and sucking it into the AI machine, that part is open source. But then they also farm it out for people. To try to make this as cost effective as possible, but it's even then it's actually operating on a loss all the time. Every time you like generate an image, you're actually not only destroying the environment and hiking up people's electricity costs, but you're also eating away at the existing revenue that they've gotten from all the numerous times that they raised money.
So Hassan, I'll tell you the crazy story. I got a letter in the mail over the holiday because one of the books that I had written had been sucked up into Claude to train it. And Anthropic was like, listen, we entered into this huge $1.5 billion settlement for all of the authors whose books had been sucked up. And like, well, would you accept the settlement offer? And it's one of those things where I'm like, well, it must be nice that you just steal everybody's intellectual property and then after the fact to be like, let me just pay you off to shut up. That's one of these companies that has done it. All the rest of them, it's just like, so now here we are. We've got like they're trying to build the machine god. And all of us are supposed to be like, yeah, this is great. And then
a machine god that's sole purpose is to displace the existing labor force, mind you.
And this is the thing about it, right? Like I actually, you know what? I looked at AlphaFold. So folks know I'm a doctor, did a PhD in public health. I grew up learning about protein folding, which is boring as hell, but basically, let me just explain quickly. You have a couple of different kinds of amino acids. They have these different end tails and they can mix in different ways. And the prediction of how they mix used to be really, really hard to do. And that's what causes a protein to fold, is like how they interact with each other. AI was used to help to understand and predict how they would fold. That's a pretty incredible use of that technology. Yeah. The problem with it though, is that there's not that much money in protein folding. You know where the money is? In trying to figure out how to enable all the Fortune 500 to cut their bottom line when it comes to their labor force by like 5 to 20%.
This is why publicly funded research is so important, which is ironic that this administration on the one hand is like desperate to try to find the next big thing and be the first to get to AGI if it's even possible to get there, while simultaneously they're chipping away at public funds and research in general, and I feel like they should be investing extra hard in that area, especially in the field of medicine too, like all public research.
I know you were talking about China on the way when I walked in, and you know one of the most frustrating things to me is that they are eating our lunch when it comes to the future of tech, and that's because they're investing
and renewable energy,
like all of the important technologies of the future. So I'll tell you a story. 2 years ago, I was speaking at a conference in Kenya, and I love coffee. So whenever I go to a coffee producing nation, I go to coffee farms. So I'm on my way to a coffee farm. I'm driving in a BYD on a Chinese paved road, driving by Chinese built row houses in which the farmers live. And I'm looking at the driver. I'm like, yo, and I already know the answer to this. I'm like, who built all this? He was like, China. And I was like, all right, so what do you think about the US? And he looks me in the rear view and I see his eyes and he's like, I don't think about the US. And that's the thing, is that like, we used to be the country that did those things. And like, you know, my parents immigrated to this place. They took a bet on America where they had rights and where this was the best single place. My parents are automotive engineers, right? Like, or my dad's an automotive engineer and my stepmom's an automotive engineer. But like my dad took a bet that like this was the best place to build cars. For most of his life, that has been true. And I worry that we're giving up on that, right? I still believe in American auto workers. I still believe in American engineers. It just seems like Donald Trump and all of them don't, right? Because I think when you look at where the competition for the automotive industry is, we've got to be able to be thinking about all the different kinds of cars we can make and being able to compete on the international market. And frankly, what they've basically said is like, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. And I'm like, all right, so I'm from Michigan where we make cars. So you're basically telling me that we're not going to compete on the international market because we've already given up on a competition with China, right? Because we don't want to invest in research and development with them.
Have you heard Jim Farley state that his daily is the BY or no, it's the U9 or something?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like he straight up said, I went to China, I saw the EVs, and I was like, if they come here, the SU7, he's like, if they come here, that's my daily now. If they come here, we're cooked. It's crazy.
I believe that we can, like, our ingenuity is better. Our engineers are better for now. But like, I think about my dad, man. I'd like, imagine it's not 1978 and it's 2026. And you got a kid who's like the brightest in his class is in Egypt, and he's looking at what's happening in the United States and thinking,
he can't even come here. We're denying immigrant visas. Yeah, it's like, oh, you want to come here? You want to come here and work? You can't work if you've ever said anything mean about JD Vance. You can't even get a visa. And at the point of entry, we're going to harass you. And we keep repeating over and over again that like, oh, your time here is limited. You're not a part of us. You're not a part of this country at all. You're completely cooked. So why the fuck would they come here? I guess like the only reason why people come here is because like we dominate the rest of the planet and we crush them into submission. So it's better to at least like not be under the boot. I mean, so that's the only reason.
But like I know what my life would have been if my parents didn't come here. Right? I know what it would have been. I also know what it has not been for a bunch of kids who grew up 15 minutes away from me, didn't get the same privileges I did. I love America. I love America enough to want her to be better. And if you want a place to be better, you got to be willing to call out what we're not doing right. It's like you watch your kid sticking something into a socket and you're like, no, I'm not going to say anything. Like if you love your kid, you tell him to stop. Yeah. And I just think we have to have an honest conversation about what it means to have some tough love about the challenges that we face right now. And
yeah, but what if your kid's a little slow? Because America is the slow kid that goes, oh, you don't want me to put the fork in the socket? I'm gonna lick the socket now. I'm gonna stick my tongue in it.
I'll tell you about kids. Even the smartest kids take a minute to have to figure it out. And like, you know, at the end of the day, like we have a moment right now where I think people are seeing just how insane a lot of this is. I mean, we were talking about immigration and the value that it is offered for this country. We did this thing in America where we were the place where all of the best and brightest from all over the rest of the world decided to come, right? And here's the thing that frustrates me the most is that a lot of folks who look at that and say, well, what's there for me, whose families have been here for generations and generations, part of me says, the very people who are now telling you that you should hate immigrants are the people who undercut your entire possibility of getting a high quality education. They disinvested in your schools, they disinvested in your healthcare, they disinvested in your communities, and then they basically kept saying, well, as long as we're able to import the best and brightest everywhere else, the top of our economy will be doing just fine. And part of me is just like, these people have been lying to you for a very long time. We should have been invested in your schools. We should have been invested in your communities. We should have empowered you to be able to compete with the best and brightest everywhere. But like those people lied to you. And now they want you to hate the very immigrants, right? That they have disempowered you to be able to actually be able to compete in the best way. And so like, to me, it's about going back out there and being able to say, look, we're going to reinvest in public schools, urban, rural communities, and make sure that our best and brightest, that all of our kids, right, have the best means to an education in the future to be able to compete with anyone, anywhere. And that used to be the case in the United States. And I think we lost that back in the 80s. Ronald Reagan, y'all.
I had a conversation about this with a very unexpected person on my flight back to Los Angeles, Neil deGrasse Tyson, but he was talking about how like America has never been motivated by anything but, profit. And the only times where they've actually gotten their shit in order was during the space race. They had to compete with the USSR. And that's the only time where there was like tremendous investment into public research in this field, because they couldn't let, because Yuri Gagarin, USSR is the first to beat America in the space race. So we had to one up them. And
Sputnik, and then the ability to orbit the Earth.
Yeah. So then inevitably we land on the moon, except according to my rocket scientist brother, we might have lost the recipes on how to get up there, or at least it's like far too costly to get up there anyway. But in any case, my point is I feel like we're not even doing that with China at this stage. Like we're taking a different attitude, taking a different approach, where we look to the tremendous amount of money spent on R&D on the renewable energy side. And we've completely said, all right, you know what? You guys dominated that. You own the manufacturing and the procurement and the refinement of all rare earth minerals around the planet. They're not so rare, but they're obviously very costly to efficiently produce, right? So they own all of it. They own all the battery technology and everything like that. They own all the solar panels. So we're just going to flip the table. We're going to double down on our efforts and control every oil-rich nation we possibly can. And it's crazy because like we're stunting our own growth, because instead of trying to compete with China, taking advantage of the unimaginable wealth that we have, educating our population, fixing our infrastructure, we're just engaging in more military adventurism overseas and trying to destabilize countries when we know that inevitably, we know that eventually fossil fuels is finite and will become obsolete.
And not only that, we're cooking ourselves in the process.
Yeah, and it's also destroying the planet.
It's a crazy thing, because China is the first country that figured out how to export infrastructure. That's what it is. But look, we have a whole industry to make infrastructure. We built all the infrastructure we could possibly need in our own country. So we're just going to go to sub-Saharan Africa, where, by the way, 30% of the world's under 40s live, and just build all their infrastructure and then sell it to them on these long-term loans that basically empower us over their government. Then we're going to build the future of renewable energies and sell that to them too. And then we're sitting here literally, this is the thing about Donald Trump.
Better loans than we offer. Better loans than all the conditional loans that the IMF and the World Bank have offered historically.
But we're out here retrenching on ourselves, disinvesting in the future of tech that people are focused on and interested in, that's more efficient over the long term. And then not only that, but Donald Trump, I don't know if you just saw this announcement. He's like, no, Chinese autos can come and build here as long as they employ American workers. I'm like, so you're basically giving up on the American auto industry. But that's what they're floating right now. That's the conversation. That and everyone gets a high deductible health plan.
And he's not going to hold them to account to make sure that those factories are unionized too.
Definitely not.
Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck about that.
He's going to try and use this opportunity to break unions, right? Because let's be clear, the union movement is one of it is one of the first enemies of any sort of fascist state. Yeah. Right? They go after unions because unions are an independent source of organizing and can make real demands on both the state and on corporations.
Let China come in. Trump reiterated his openness to Chinese auto investment in the U.S. while speaking recently in Detroit. Early on the campaign trail, Trump, he just wants to be Obama.
He said it in Detroit.
He wants to be Obama so bad. This is like when Obama when Obama built a Chinese factory that closed down later. You know what I'm talking about? And then he made the documentary Factory.
And this is the other thing, right? It's like, so we're in this international race around AI, but he's like, hey, you can just buy the chips because we're gonna make money off of it. But it's like the short termism is insane. It's just insane.
Well, I mean, shutting China off from even purchasing those chips initially caused China to go and develop it on their own. And now they've actually made tremendous breakthroughs in what is it called? Like not the chips itself, but like the manufacturing of chips, like the thing that you need, the technology that we wouldn't allow, the EUV lithography, yeah. The technology that we would not allow to export from the Netherlands to China, they basically went around and designed it on their own. So now, they're probably 5 years to 10 years out from mass producing all that stuff. They've already started engineering their own NVIDIA style GPUs. They're going to flood the market, and it's going to be good for the American consumer, but it will be terrible for the American stock market. Like I'm a citizen of the world. Like I don't think about this in terms of like warring nations or foreign adversaries. I think that's a very dangerous idea that a lot of Americans maintain. You're running for Senate, so you don't have to say anything about this. I understand.
Let me just say something. Look, I think we do our best when we are leading on building things that are productive, that create opportunity for folks in this country and abroad. I don't think it's a zero-sum competition. Either we win or they win. I think we can all win. One of the frustrations I do have with China is that like they've often broken the rules, right? Like they very much enforce their own patent law. And then when it comes to our patents, like
you're talking to the most anti-copyright guy on the planet, for the record.
But like if you agree to play by certain rules, you play by the rules, right? And that to me is like I disagree. The other thing I'll just say that is this: I think for us, if we're serious about using the rise of a China to build for ourselves, we've got to be really thoughtful about asking, like, where is this puck going? Like,
so you're running for Senate on high-speed rail, is what you're saying now. It's not just Medicare for all. We're bringing miles and miles of high-speed rail, baby. U.S. Steel.
I'll be honest with you, like, I'm actually really interested to see, like, what is the future of like what a car is? You know what I mean? Like that is a big open question that I actually think.
I've just realized you're running in Michigan.
No. I'm like, look, I'm all for high-speed rail. Don't get me wrong. I don't think these things are mutually exclusive, but like there is a big open question about like so you think about this, right? What makes a train a train? It runs you have a bunch of cars hooked together. It runs on a very predictable path, right? It goes between different places. But like you think about what happens now as more of automotive becomes self-driving. So like at some point you're talking about convergence around some of these things. Like even think about it. Like you own a car, right? I own a car. My car sits fallow for like most of the day. Mm-hmm. And it's there for me when I need it. I take it where I need to go. But like in some respects, if your car can drive itself and you can order a car on demand, like ask yourself what the difference between having your own car, having an Uber on demand is, and then having public transit. Yeah. So I'm just saying that like there is this convergence in like where the future of transit is headed that I actually think breaks the sort of divide of like car, no car, like light rail, public transit. What happens?
But we don't have any public transit options in general. That's the problem.
I agree, and I think it's a big part of. I mean, it's a huge issue.
It's ironic because, like, on the one hand, if you're a Ford automotive worker, right? If you're working at a factory and you got a good union job, your job kind of relies on making sure that Americans use cars and not public transit. Because if there's more diversity of option, then less people purchase cars, and then you're making less cars. But also at the same time, every single worker would probably benefit from having more robust public transit so that they could take advantage of that instead of getting a car. So it would make their lives much better. Beyond that, though, there's also, I think, a cultural importance in this, too, because, like, I think the reason why cities are blue rather than, like, rural areas that end up turning red is because you're constantly around a diversity of different opinions. You're constantly around a diverse group of individuals, diversity in age, diversity in thought, and it causes you to be more understanding and more empathetic, and it causes you to have a sense of like shared culture, and that's why everybody goes like, "Oh, New York is the best," New York number one. Even though ironically I'm wearing a Yankees hat.
Detroit number one, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen on accident. That happens because people are constantly around one another, and like they're forced to interact with one another, be around other people.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think any urban community is going to have that. I'm just thinking about this, right? Like if you think about a lot of the things that people want, they want just-in-time transit. They want specific like last mile solutions. And like you could imagine a world where you had a sort of like public version of Uber, right? That was entirely an EV based system, right? So it was it was like really quite clean, right? And that it literally solves the last mile problem for you. So it's not just the kind of thing like it runs particular routes and then you have to figure out the last mile. I'm just saying that like the future of where public transit could go in an era where you can have a clean car that drives itself. I'm just saying that like we have this divide that we've created in our minds about like there's public transit and then there's cars. And I'm just saying that like as cars become both more efficient from like a driver standpoint and also more efficient from a renewable energy standpoint, you could imagine a world in which you actually say, look, a public community could operate, right, an Uber system where you do have some shared routes, but like it'll come pick you up, take you where you need to go, and do so at scale relatively cheaply. So
also, like I got back from China recently. I went to China and I saw it's the most American country on the planet. It's so funny to say this because people are like, "What the fuck do you mean?" But like they are very, like there is definitely a shared culture there. Like their cultural attitudes are quite similar. And one of the things I noticed is that there is robust infrastructure and a lot of public transit, but everybody has a fucking car too. So there's both.
Yeah.
Like you can have both. It's not zero sum. You can have a car that you use on the weekends if you want to, but then also take advantage of, you know, the public transit system that exists. So
and look, I'm actually, to be honest with you, the value of having public transit is huge. One of the great harms that was done in the city of Detroit was actually it used to have a trolley system, and then they undid the trolley system because they built the highways right into the city and tore up that trolley system.
Same in Los Angeles.
Same in Los Angeles. Same in a number of urban communities.
That was the car companies.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. I mean, so I'm just saying that like I actually think that, you know, we this is a debate that ought to be had. I do think that in a lot of ways, right, thinking about how people live and where people live, a public transit system is a great solution in urban communities. You think about rural communities, it's going to look a little bit different. I actually think the excitement of this is that you can start thinking about what public transportation looks like in a rural community in an era where you now have this more efficient kind of car, right? So I'm just saying that like...
And the best part about public transit is that it is the only effective way to reduce traffic density, which is so crazy. Because everybody goes, nah, we'll just put one more lane on the highway.
And it never works.
Of course it doesn't work because it gets bottlenecked when you enter the city. So that's not, you know, when it gets, you're inevitably going to have to do one lane. Unless the new idea is that they just like chop down the building blocks in the city and make the city roads eight lanes long as well.
I mean, that's the other thing is that like, I think this is the hard part. When we think about manufacturing, which Michigan, of course, is a huge manufacturing state, we always think about it with respect to legacy projects that we're manufacturing. We're not thinking about like what is the next thing that we have to manufacture. And this is the hard part. This is like
make Ford make train cars.
I mean, like, you know, like in the middle of COVID, Ford started to make masks.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm just saying that like we in Michigan, we make stuff. And what we make, I think we need to always be thinking about what's the next thing that needs to be made, right? And we'll always make cars in Michigan, but like, what is the next set of things that we need to make? And
kind of feels like the only time where American prosperity was at its peak was when we had what resembles a centrally planned economy during the wartime. And that was that, like, we ate good off of that even after the period of World War II ended.
Yeah, the hard part about that is by implication it was like during wartime. So I hope we.
Well, no, I know that's the wrong lesson. Yeah. You can maintain a similar attitude.
I mean, to be fair, right? Like,
and
unfortunately,
not have the economy directed at making a handful of select billionaires super wealthy, and instead focus on improving. Focus on, I don't know, maybe developing like a 5-year project or a 4-year project if that's the same. Election cycle that we have, the same term structure that we have, and then design a 4-year project, make both of those 4-year projects compete against one another in the elections, and then have that be the initiative for the upcoming 4 years rather than thinking in quarters.
So that's the hard part, right? It's like we have stopped investing in the technologies of the future, and the whole point of institutions like the NSF and the NIH was that you were invested in giving out grants to folks who had great ideas about building the future. We stopped doing that, right? And once you stop doing that, at some point, you are failing to sort of recognize where things are headed, and you're retrenching backwards. And that's not like it doesn't have to be central planning. It's just like, this is where we think this is going. Why don't we invest in this new tech so our industry can also benefit and also grow? And we're just not doing that anymore. And like under Trump, this is the thing about Donald Trump, is that he's always interested in a win tomorrow. He's never really interested in a win in 10 years.
In a way, he's like perfect for American capital for that reason. And we're kind of seeing that.
You're right.
We're kind of seeing that too, like even with Jerome Powell, right? Like Donald Trump is basically touching all the third rails, right? Like in the past, if someone were to say, we're going to take the Federal Reserve and we're going to control it. Like I want you to do this thing. I want you to lower interest rates. It doesn't matter what kind of system you have in place that is like supposed to be totally removed. Obviously, there is an economic ideology driving the Fed as well. I'm not silly. I'm not stupid. And it's not one that favors the working class in general. But even in terms of like dominating the interest of capital, like that was what created stability. You always know like monetary policy is going to pick up the slack because, let's be real, there's no fiscal policy coming because that's happening at the legislative level, and Congress is only good, unfortunately, until you get elected, only good for cutting taxes. But you're in the no longer do we want to tax billionaire state right now. Gavin Newsom has some interesting things to say about that.
What did he say?
Apparently, he said he wanted to stop the initiative to tax billionaires. As a matter of fact, does anyone have the link for that?
He's trying to run for president.
No, but that's the opposite of what you should be doing. If you want to run for president, you have to be like, hell yeah, I want to fucking tax billionaires.
Here's the funny thing about folks when they run for office, right? Like you surround yourself by a lot of times by a bunch of folks who want what's best for you, but will tell you what you cannot do. And then for somebody like him, he's thinking, all right, well, how am I going to raise money and how can I appear to be quote unquote more mainstream? And part of me says that like at some point, the whole point of running for office is not to get elected. The point of running for office is to do something if you get elected. That's the fucking point.
Yeah.
So,
and you know what's beautiful about that? When you actually have ideas that will help people's lives, you have a higher likelihood of winning office. Like you have a higher likelihood of winning the race.
And this is the thing that Democrats don't realize. Like, are you clocking this whole debate about abolish ICE?
Yeah.
I mean, so I was out there 2018, right? And because anybody with the brain could have seen where this was all headed. If Donald Trump were to take office again, he was going to weaponize ICE against the idea of immigration and the Constitution itself. And this is exactly what he's done. And the notion that ICE like shot somebody in the face. But now a bunch of Democrats, right, get anxiety about the idea that, oh my God, they're going to weaponize this against us. But you learn the long lesson from Trump. Trump didn't walk out there being like, oh, what is the idea that I can say that is going to be the least dangerous? This guy went out there and said all kinds of crazy shit, but what he was able to do was pick a fight and force people to take sides. And the problem with Democrats is we actually tell the truth. This dude is lying and picking fights to polarize folks. We actually can tell the truth. You deserve to have healthcare in your country. We should be taxing billionaires in an era where we're spitting out more billionaires faster than people can actually figure out how to afford their damn groceries. So yeah, run on the shit that is obvious. But you know, I'm sure he's got a good set of consultants that are telling him that that's a little bit too far from the mainstream. People feel worried.
But it's not.
He's running against prosperity. Ridiculous.
So that's the problem. The delicate tightrope that you must operate when you're running for president or when you're running as like an establishment Democrat is one that still favors the donors and doesn't disrupt them too much. And what I always find to be frustrating here is that they always happen to tell people what they can't have when it's the working class. Yeah, they have no issue telling the working class, you can't have this thing, okay? Why can't you have this thing? Well, the real reason is because our donors won't be able to turn profits the same way.
But they will. This is the funny thing. But you tax a billionaire 8%. How much does a billionaire's money make every year? About 10%?
Yeah, it's just...
So you tax a billionaire 8%. They're still going to be richer next year than they were this year.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's unlimited greed.